an area of study within gaming I'm fairly concerned about, and hopefully after today, you too will learn to appreciate this unique field of gaming history. That said, when I was planning to speak here today, I was told to provide some information about my involvement within the digital preservation community, and answered honestly that I haven't been directly involved. So I'd like to thank the Strong for taking a chance on me, and I'd like to provide a little introduction of myself, my connection to gaming before I really dig in. First thing I should mention is that I'm a Nintendo guy. Nintendo is my main area of focus and where my expertise lies. So all my examples today will be Nintendo related, but the concepts can be applied across the full landscape of gaming merchandise. Growing up, I had an unusual relationship and history with Nintendo as a company that can't be replicated in the current landscape. I first discovered Nintendo at a young age and became absolutely obsessed with it. However, in 1995, I got the internet and immediately joined the official Nintendo online community known as the Loud House and later Insider. Over the years, I also attended all their summer camps known as Camp Hyrule. This community was really special because it allowed myself and others to talk to Nintendo employees every night, several of whom actually became my friends even outside of work hours. So while my uncle didn't work at Nintendo, I could find out and hear his did. Many of the regulars would chat with these employees on their own free time and made Nintendo feel like a deeply personal company to us. In 2001, I flew across the country and snuck into E3 underage. It would be my first many E3 trips. It was a big year for Nintendo. I eventually became an Insider Sage community leader in 2003, and this gave me access to special events and had other perks. I was a Wii Games 2010 national finalist with my sister, which is like a forgotten Nintendo World Championships. I started writing for game sites around that time, and in 2012 joined Nintendo World Report. NWR has been independently covering Nintendo since 1999, and I'm happy to be part of the team there. I was promoted to features editor in 2014. Writing at Nintendo World Report has allowed me to cover multiple Nintendo events, E3s, New York toy fairs, and more. I'm also fortunate to have met several industry legends over the many years I've been around games. However, more importantly for today's presentation, over my entire life, I've been a Nintendo collector. This picture is from a video series I did for a few years when I started writing, where I portrayed the King Nintendo fanboy character. This character was a magnified version of myself. In these videos, I show off my latest merchandise pickups. At the time, I thought using a character name would be easier for people to remember because Ruby isn't the most common name out there. And I managed to grow a small audience that sometimes still reach out to me to this day. Throughout my life, I've acquired a pretty sizable collection, and that's why I'm here today to talk to you about the importance of video game merchandise preservation. So what is game merchandise? The purpose of today's presentation is using a broad definition. This can include things such as items sold in stores, promotional items, store displays, employee items, digital merchandise, food items, and more. So why is game merchandise important? First, merchandise can give an insight into how companies perceive their games, brand, or characters at different time periods. You can look at the original Donkey Kong arcade game for some early examples of this. When I first read The History of Mario by William Attenborough, it was brought to my attention that Donkey Kong was a much more popular character than Mario at the time. Mario was more of a side character, while DK was the main attraction despite being the antagonist. This is a game that was released before I was born, so this was something I had never really considered before. That said, game merchandise can help corroborate claims like this. When studying early Donkey Kong merchandise, you can see there's a greater focus on Donkey Kong as a character. On this mug, Donkey Kong is referred to as Mr. Donkey Kong, while Pauline is the beautiful girl, and Mario only mentioned as the brave carpenter. Mario did get some merchandise at this time, but Donkey Kong was clearly the star. For instance, there were several Donkey Kong plush toys made in this era of different sizes, but none of Mario. Though it is argued that a Mario plush was considered, as some people think this is likely a prototype that's been found. Regardless, DK was clearly the star, and merchandise can be used to support claims like this. Licensed board games are another example that we can look at to see Nintendo's changing attitude toward the use of their intellectual property. In the 1980s, there were several original licensed board games like Donkey Kong, Super Mario Bros., and The Legend of Zelda. Original board games have continued over the years, but have always come across as way less ambitious, with an exception here for 2007's Big Brain Academy. As a side note, I love that Big Brain Academy got a board game, and it really shows the pull Nintendo DS and the Touch Generations line had at the time. So why did original board games become more basic? At New York Toy Fair one year, I asked a representative at USAopoly about this since they were making many Nintendo board games. They said, Nintendo is very protective of the brand, which shouldn't surprise anyone here, and Nintendo is currently much more open to inserting their IP into already existing board games, which is why I see a lot more of this as opposed to original board game content. Many of these games have special rules themed around the Nintendo IP connected to it to make them slightly unique. Though some of you may be wondering about Monopoly. And there have been many Nintendo Monopoly games produced over the years. Again, this isn't everything, and some of these games have special rules in order to make them unique. The point is that even if I hadn't specifically asked USA Opry about this, researchers would have been able to come to similar conclusions about the use of the Nintendo IP based on studying these types of products. Ultimately, there's a lot to learn about companies over different time periods by researching game merchandise. Reason 2 why game merchandise is important is that it helps us understand the promotion and marketing of games. Promotion and marketing of a game is arguably just as important, if not more so, as the game itself. And we can look to merchandise to partially see how this was done. First, we can look at store point-of-purchase displays and other marketing material that would have been around during a game's launch or during specific promotions. This helps us understand what customers could have been looking at in the actual stores, if anything at all, and helps us understand how these products were actually sold. These are also pre-order bonuses or purchase incentives to look at to understand what would have helped entice prospective buyers to pick up a game, or what would have helped retailers sway sales to their store over another. Here we have a water bottle from Walmart, a keychain from Target, a pin set from GameStop, and a tote bag from Best Buy. These incentives can also vary between other countries or regions, so there's a lot to look at in games that just kind of push behind them. Continuing with Pikmin 4 as an example, we can also see different promotional gifts and prizes that were offered at the time. All these are My Nintendo rewards or contests. So we can see printable digital reward hats, purchasable shoe charms, and a hand towel, and a picnic sweepstakes that people can enter to win exclusive items. All these types of things were put up around the release of the game to build awareness and excitement for the product. Studying these types of objects really does help us understand the landscape these games are being released in and what companies are doing in order to promote and sell their games. Reason 3 why game merchandise is important is video game merchandise has the ability to expand and in some cases alter game lore. Some obvious examples are this art and lore books here. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Creating a Champion. This book has an entire history section dedicated to explaining a ton of the lore for this version of Hyrule in greater detail than in the game. This includes history, geography, and more. The Legend of Zelda Hyrule Historia is one of the most famous examples of this. It gave us the first printed Zelda timeline from Nintendo. It's still discussed and debated a lot to this day, since it includes a major retcon that I personally don't like, but it's a major part of history nonetheless. And the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 official Artworks Ionios Moments book has a Q&A section in the back with the executive director of the game, Tetsuya Takahashi, that reveals a lot of information about the series' plot so far that isn't found directly in any of the games. Aside from obvious stuff, merchandise can impact the knowledge and understanding of a game's lore in strange ways. This first example I'd like to mention has to do with Metroid Dread. Here's a Metroid Dread shirt manufactured by Sportique for sale in North American Nintendo stores. Prior to its release, fans noticed there was some Chozo text found within the game that nobody could decipher it. The Chozo are a highly advanced bird-like race, and if you look in the back here, you can see that. The lips. So when this first went up for sale, I shared it with my friends over at Nintendo World Report, and our site director, John Reardon, noticed that the text behind Samus spelled out the main character's full name, Samus Aran. John then asked me if there were any other shirts with bliss on them, and I told him there were. I knew this shirt here was only available to Nintendo employees and influencers, but it had more bliss on it. John assembled a team to work on deciphering this, and they eventually figured out that this text said Metroid and Bounty Hunter. After working further with the team, they were able to basically piece together the entire Chozo alphabet, which led to further discoveries in the actual game. If you want more information on this, I know there's a video on our site's YouTube channel, Nintendo World Report TV. This is further proof of merchandise's important impact on game lore, even when it's probably not intended. One final example is with the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Siren model kit that released in Japan. Siren is a giant machine that plays a role in the Xenoblade 2 story. So what does a model kit have to do with lore details? Well, the kit's instruction book that had a page containing some extremely important story details that affects the entire Xenoblade trilogy thus far, may even arguably connect Xenoblade games to other Xeno games. This important information can't be found in the games, it is only from the merchandise. Reason number 4 why merchandise is important is that it can help researchers gauge the cultural impact of games, characters, and brands. For example, if we were able to more easily track how much merchandise for a specific game there was and when it was being produced, we may be able to draw certain conclusions about overall cultural impact over time and at specific points in time. It's extremely difficult to show this because it's hard to do research on game merchandise in large quantities. One small example I have is with the original Super Mario Bros. Game. So these are socks you can recently get from Hallmark featuring the original Super Mario Brothers logo and in-game artwork. I've seen similar products being sold at other retailers. My point is, there's something to be said about the longevity and cultural impact of a game that can still move merchandise like this nearly 4 decades after its release. With more research in this area, I think we've actually learned a lot. On this topic, I want to say that I feel as though many people view the history of a game as what took place roughly around the start of development to the time at which a game shipped, or in modern times, when the final update was released. I, however, view the history of a game as continuing through merchandise like this that can be released long after a game is complete. Things like this are part of a game's cultural impact and are part of the full story of the game's history. The final reason why video game merchandise is important is that it's used in development. I only have one example of this, but Masahiro Sakurai, the director of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, has talked several times about how he and his artists use official game figures as reference material in the production of the game. Sakurai has also mentioned that it's a great way to see what the bottom of some character's feet should look like. So just to give a quick recap here, the 5 reasons I've come up with today for why video game merchandise is important. It gives insight into game, brand, and character perception, helps us understand promotion and marketing, and expand game lore, helps gauge cultural impact, and game merchandise is used in development. So what's being done to preserve this merchandise? If you do a quick Google search on the topic, not much shows up, which is frightening. Even though the results are limited, the truth is there are a lot of scattered attempts. One website I found, been able to find, called The Gaming Shelf, has attempted to make sort of a list of game merchandise. Some of the information it has on items is good, but it's very limited. Additionally, it hasn't been updated in a while from what I can tell. Some websites dedicated to specific franchises also track game merchandise for said games. Here we can see a page from the Metroid database. However, this is from a copy of their old site that's still accessible, though a bit hidden as their updated site dropped this great information. Unfortunately, some of these old pictures are also broken. These sections, additionally, are not complete. Some game wikis have some information and incomplete lists of merchandise for the series they cover. Here you can see a picture from Wikipedia, Splatoon Wiki, showing off various items. Then you have some sites like Kirby Informer that reports on new merchandise releases, which helps preserve the memory of these items. PokeShopper.net is another site that tracks new and upcoming releases for the Pokemon franchise. Then we have some printed media that can help preserve such items. The World of Nintendo by Andy Cunningham is an excellent book that covers the history of Nintendo of America's early in-store merchandising initiatives. While the text of this book focuses more on the story behind it, there are plenty of great pictures showing off the in-store displays of the era. And if you look around these images, you can get a glimpse of many of the other Nintendo goods that were for sale during the time as well. I highly recommend this book. The Mario's Goodie Collection is another book by collector Mitsuku Kakai which shows off many Mario items. While this makes for a fun coffee table book, I think it's lacking information that would make it a lot more useful. This book is also incredibly rare. The good thing about it is that it does show off a lot of Japanese exclusive goods that many people outside of the region may not be aware of. One initiative I found especially exciting is from the Twitter account @KeshiCorner. Mr. Toledo, the person behind the account, has been 3D scanning one of these Japanese gaming Keshi figures a day and uploading them to archive.org. I'm not aware of anyone else doing work like this, and I think it's one direction game merchandise preservation needs to go in on a larger scale in the future. You may be wondering what's being done at the institutional level. I reached out to many organizations that are considered to be in the games preservation space. Sadly, of those that got back to me, I found most to be focused almost exclusively on video game hardware and software. However, 2 have taken an interest in obtaining some of these items. They are the Strong National Museum of Play and the National Video Game Museum in Frisco, Texas. While both are accepting items in this space, I don't know how in-depth their collections are or how detailed their information is on this class of items. That said, I'm happy to see some institutional work being done in this field. Ultimately, the heavy lifting is actually being done by individual collectors. These people have a depth of knowledge in their areas of expertise that is completely unmatched. Collectors are part of the key to unlocking long-term merchandise preservation, and their dedication and knowledge is extraordinarily impressive. These include collectors like a guy that goes by the name of Super Smash Collector online with an incredible Smash Brothers collection. Christian Ponte, who has a great Fire Emblem collection. And Martha Harnez, who holds the Guinness World Record for the largest collection of the Legend of Zelda memorabilia. And Brett Martin, who holds the Guinness World Record for the largest collection of video games memorabilia. Video game merchandise collectors are really going above and beyond to obtain some of this stuff. For instance, Mario Collector in 2021 won this Japanese Malo plush from the original release of Super Mario RPG at auction for the equivalent of about $21,000. Game merchandise is serious business. So looking at all this, I still have to ask, is this true preservation? I'd say some of it is and some of it isn't. I've seen many merchandise sites come and go, some without a trace, and while the Internet Archive is a great tool, it doesn't catch everything. At the institutional level, as mentioned, we seemingly only have 2 places actively seeking some of these items. There's a lot more to saving these items than just collecting them. The act of collecting isn't necessarily preservation, but it can be a start. Ultimately, a lot of the pressure of trying to save these items falls in the hands of the collectors that save these objects out of pure passion, but that likely isn't enough on its own. Which is why I asked, where can you even learn about game merchandise? Sure, you can try to do web searches, but the results are very limited, as I mentioned. eBay can get some clues, but many times the descriptions are incorrect or made up to try and add value to items. Ultimately, the knowledge is in the brains of the dedicated collectors, and a lot of that information isn't easily found. If you want to learn about game merchandise, you need to track down experts and look at many places like subreddits, Discord servers, Facebook groups, and other various places on the web. This is a real problem because more than just the knowledge of the items themselves is at risk. What do I mean by that? Let me give you some examples. Just looking at an item like this, you'd probably assume it's not a big deal, just some cheap toys sold on a store shelf. So what is it really? It's a Jack-specific World of Nintendo 2.5-inch Fire Toad figure, and it's highly sought after because for whatever reason, these were only shipped to Mexico. Here we have a white and black Yoshi BD&A plush that were only available as part of a mail-in gift with a cutout UPC label for Yoshi's Story on Nintendo 64. People send in a label, and I think $5, they could get one of these. They are extraordinarily rare today. These crystals were sold exclusively at the Nintendo World Store in New York City. One is made available for each year of the store's operation for the first 3 years, and they initially retailed for about $400 a piece. Mario's from 2005, Peach from 2006, and Twilight Princess Link is from 2007. These items are Splatoon rubber trinkets. I don't know exactly what they're supposed to be used for, but there's a small rubber loop on the back. What makes them incredibly important is they might be the first pieces of Splatoon merchandise ever produced. After trying the Splatoon demo at E3 2014, where the game was announced, a person would be given one of these. I haven't really found information on these elsewhere, and I don't think it's even possible to place a white inkling in the final game, so these also can give us an early glimpse into the game's development. And finally, here we have an NES controller tin of mints. It may not seem like much, but these are still being manufactured. The reason I find it important is, as far as I can tell, this is currently the last item being made that uses the famous Nintendo Power branding. What I'm getting at here is that it's not only the objects that need saving, it's the deep and crazy context behind these items that needs to be preserved as well. And the knowledge behind many of these objects are only found within the minds of experts. And those experts won't last forever. Time is running out to mine these minds for this valuable information so that it may be made available for generations to come. If we don't find a way to save the context along with the items, we may misinterpret some of the data these items can give us. And time isn't the only problem. In 2015, Satoru Iwata made it clear that he wanted Nintendo to increase the use of their IP in many different areas, including merchandise. As a Nintendo collector, hearing this made me curious as to what was going to happen, as they were already licensing out a ton of items. However, after this statement, we have definitely entered a boom period of Nintendo merchandise. Since then, Nintendo has partnered with many different brands to create and sell limited time products to help increase their brand awareness. These are just a few examples that I can remember, but I'm sure there are more. The merchandise doesn't stop here though, as Nintendo has expanded its store program to many locations globally. Here in the US, we have the Nintendo World Store that was converted to Nintendo New York in 2016. There's a Nintendo Company Store within Nintendo of America known as Nintendo Redmond, and Nintendo San Francisco is slated to open sometime next year. Japan has 3 stores now, Nintendo Osaka, Tokyo, and Kyoto. I expect the store program to continue to grow and expand into new markets in the future. All of these stores carry exclusive items. Additionally, just detailed 3 days ago, the Nintendo Museum opening this October will have exclusive merchandise as well. And then there are stores and other merchandise items coming in at the various Super Nintendo World theme parks opening up globally. New items are made available somewhat frequently. My point behind these examples is just to illustrate that it will be an impossible task to document everything, especially with the number of items being produced drastically increasing. even in regular stores, but I think it's important and possible to try. There's a lot of work to be done to really save what has already been made, and more stuff than ever is in the pipeline. It's a completely uphill battle to save this important part of our history and gaming culture. So, what can be done? On a personal level, I think it's important for people that do care about game merchandise to do a better job at saving it. I recommend people start taking pictures of merchandise, including packaging. Document how the merchandise you do get was distributed, especially at events and or as promotional items. Take care of what you do have, because you never know what dumb thing could be extremely rare in the future, or right when you get it. And try to get these objects in the hands of people that are passionate about them. On a professional level, a lot more needs to be done. More organizations need to start acquiring interesting and important merchandise. Organizations need more experts recording the data about this merchandise. Important and interesting items need to be stored professionally to ensure long-term survivability. And organizations need to work closely with collectors and merchandise experts. And maybe new organizations need to come into existence in order to help specialize in this field. I do feel like over time all this can be achieved at some level, but we need much more collaboration at the professional level with collectors that want to save these historically important artifacts. I don't know of any other major merchandise collectors that donate portions of their collections to established institutions. But I think it could go a long way for a good organization to take these items in and treat them with the highest respect to show the serious merchandise collectors that there is a good path forward if they want to have these items available for future generations. Strong trust between merchandise collectors and established not-for-profit institutions needs to be developed to advance this field. Another possible solution, which I think is very important, is on the digital front. Something I'd like to see in the future is one or several professionally run online databases that experts can start filling in to help save these items. This could save both the existence of the items as well as the context behind them. I'm admittedly not very knowledgeable in the database field, but there are clearly a lot of risks and challenges here as well. Money, data storage, portability to future platforms. Who should be filling information in? Will people want to collaborate on such a project? Should bootlegs and knockoffs be part of this? And many other issues. I brought this idea to a few developer friends of mine, and I think they just want to tell me I'm crazy, which I know I am. But this may be one of the only ways to attempt to save this stuff. And I'm just someone who cares and wants to do the right thing in the space while I can. Ultimately, video game merchandise is awesome, and I don't think we're doing enough to preserve this unique aspect of gaming culture that has several potential research benefits. If we, as a community, don't start to come together to take this more seriously, we are in danger of losing a lot of gaming history and culture. And that on a higher level is the loss of human culture. Sadly, it seems like many institutions have blinders on and only focus solely on the hardware and software side of gaming history, which I feel is a complete mistake. That said, we still have time to start saving merchandise before it's too late. We can start making a difference, that the merchandise collectors and preservation communities need to come together, and that needs to happen sooner rather than later. As for me, I've amassed quite a substantial collection, and I haven't been able to keep collecting at the rate I had been. At its surface, collecting can be a selfish hobby, as many people are buying for limited resources. I'm at a point now where I'd rather work with other serious collectors and do the right thing for the long term, but it's hard to find avenues forward, as this really does feel like a new frontier in games preservation. When you have collected as many things as I have, you start to realize nothing you own is yours forever, so you start to wonder what doing the right thing is about, and that's one of the reasons I'm here today. In the coming months and years, I'll have to start downsizing my collection by either donating or selling items. I'm sure that day comes for many collectors, but I still have to do something positive to make a difference in this area of study. I hope you walk away today with a greater understanding and appreciation for the importance of video game merchandise to our gaming history and culture. If you do, I feel as though I did my job and made some sort of impact in this area that means so much to so many people and collectors. I strongly urge everyone to start taking this and many other lesser appreciated areas of gaming more seriously, because together we can make a positive impact on truly preserving things like game merchandise on both a physical and digital front for future generations. That's all I have for you today, and here's some ways to reach out.